I sat there in shock. I didn't know how to feel. My whole life, I had dreamt of the perfect life. You know, with a happy family, a big house, a good job, and maybe 3 to 5 kids. But now my dreams were being crushed. I looked at the doctor and nervously asked, "Is it possible for me to ever have children?" What she said next broke my heart. When I was younger, I used to attend a Catholic confirmation class every Wednesday. One thing that really confused me was the idea that birth control was bad because I had been on it since I was 12 years old to help me with my intense cramps and heavy flow. My teacher and youth pastors would constantly go on and on about how wrong it was to take birth control and how sex before marriage was the ultimate sin. Being an impressionable young adult, I took their hateful words as the truth. And even though it helped me with my cramps, I believed that I was committing a sin by using birth control. So I had a meeting with a youth pastor and talked to her about stopping it. She thought it was a great idea and recommended me to download some applications on my phone to help and track my period and said that maybe I can avoid bad cramps that way. Everything seemed fine until I realized that I hadn't had my period for over 3 months. I told my mom about it and she rushed me to the doctor. The doctor had to take 13 vials of blood for all the tests she wanted to run. 1 week went by. The doctor called us saying that the results were in and that we needed to make an appointment as soon as possible. My mom and I went in when we got an appointment. The doctor walked in with a distressed face. As she sat down, she turned to me and said, "Your hypothyroidism developed into Hashimoto's thyroiditis, a disease in which the thyroid gland is gradually destroyed, which means that instead of having too much thyroid hormone, it is fluctuating very rapidly." My mom tried to keep it together while my brain was still processing what the doctor just said. She looked at me in sadness while I went through every possible scenario when the thought of having children popped up on my mind. I needed to know, so I looked at the doctor and tried to keep my voice from shaking as I asked her if there was any possibility that I could have kids in the future. But she told me that because of my condition, the chances were very small. I sat there in shock. I felt like I couldn't breathe. No kids? Ever? I'm sorry to say this, but there's more. You also have celiac disease, so you can't eat any food made of wheat, she continued. At that point, everything was still sounding okay until the doctor gave me the worst news. Also, we tested your estrogen level, and it's so low, the amount you have is like the amount we find in a 55-year-old lady in menopause. What? Menopause? I looked at the doctor stunned when she said, "I'm so sorry to say this, but that means you have premature autoimmune ovarian failure." After that, I started taking estrogen supplements, and for a while, my health was finally stable. I tried not to think about my future and look at the positives. I promised myself that as soon as I started to get better, I would go see a fertility specialist in hopes that maybe, just maybe, I'll be able to have kids. As soon as I turned 18, I made a trip to see one. I was incredibly nervous, but excited. I had been waiting for this day to come and tried my best to make sure that I was healthy. A nurse came in and took my blood to run some tests. While I waited in the room, I couldn't help but think of the worst. I dreamt of having kids my whole life, and the idea of not being able to have the chance would break me. After a few more minutes, a doctor came into the room. I was so excited to hear the results when she opened the chart and looked at me. "I'm sorry, but from what I can see here, you don't have any eggs left in your ovaries at all." The doctor's words were ringing in my ear. I thought that I would be okay, but I wasn't. The doctor tried to comfort me, saying that there are options if I want to have kids in the future. I sat there fighting back the tears while listening to her speak. She said my chances were slim, but I could have an egg donor, which will give me the possibility of kids. I was feeling fine while heading back home, but as soon as I got through the door, I exploded into tears. I couldn't stop crying for what felt like forever. My boyfriend at the time and I both wanted to have kids in the future. He was trying his best to comfort me, even though I was so upset. For months, I thought, why does this have to happen to me? The one thing I wanted most in my life was taken away from me. In the end, though, our relationship didn't work out. Am I even a real woman? I thought to myself. How am I supposed to afford an egg donor and all the expenses if I want to have a baby one day? I eventually told the doctor that I was depressed and I was prescribed with antidepressant medication, and I started feeling better after a while. And these thoughts about having babies but not being able to still cross my mind occasionally. Finding a partner has been one of the biggest challenges in my life. Most guys get scared away when I bring up infertility. One thing that's changed, though, I've finally accepted that this is my life. Being sad is not going to do any good for me. I'm now 22, and I finally met a man who supports me and loves me. And most importantly, he accepts who I am and is ready to take this journey with me. If any of you are struggling with infertility problems, always remind yourself to not give up, and that there are many options out there available for you.